Destiny held himself between two walls in the darkness, waiting for the Prophithian to pass underneath him. The moment he had, Destiny dropped, spinning in the air, pulling out Talonthorn and slicing the head off of the Prophithian guard. The corpse tumbled to the ground. He rolled it over and took the access card from its belt, continuing on down the hallway. He burst into the corner support room, where there were 3 massive green crystals, each as tall as Destiny was, each embedded into the corner of the building to keep it aloft. Using the force, he popped all 3 crystals out of their spots, and wielding the gun he had taken from the guard, he stepped out of the holes that the crystals had once occupied. Stepping out onto the side of the building, jumping out of the side of the building, he plummeted through the air toward the bottom of the building. All of the top corners had been released of their anchors. As he neared the bottom corner, he used the force, he willed himself, pushed himself down toward the side of the building, pushing against gravity as well to slow himself down. He rolled against the building itself and ran toward the bottom corner, shooting with his blaster as he did, shooting one of the crystals. As the energy hit the crystal began to bleed red, and after about 5 shots, it exploded into molten red and green crystal. He leapt to the other side of the corner, still running towards the bottom of the building, and releasing blasts on this crystal. The moment he began to hit them, the militia knew that their capital was in danger, and a fleet of ships was quickly on its way to stop him. By the time he reached the corner, the second crystal was almost weak enough to shatter, but not quite. The fleet of ships began to shoot at Destiny, who was forced to dive into the hole he'd created by destroying the first crystal and slipping into that corner support room. He stood and finished his work of destroying the second crystal. It shattered and exploded. And he began work on the third crystal. But as he shot, the ships came within range, and aiming through the small holes that he had created, began to blast through the small room. Destiny was forced to take cover behind one of the walls as the ship shot through, and a second ship came to face him from this side. He ducked away from that side, and both ships went silent, waiting for him to appear. He dove in line of one of the ships long enough to pull it with all his might toward him. It crashed through the small hole and slammed into the back of the room as he dove out of the way and threw himself out the window, out of the hole that the ship had made. He crouched along the side as the second ship began to shoot again, but ill-placed shots hit the fuel part, the fuel tank of the first ship, which caused the ship to explode, destroying the third crystal and rocking the building side to side. The building rocked upward, supported on the far side by the crystals along the bottom that were still there, and it rocked back. However, there were no crystals on this side to counteract the movement, and the building began to carve downward through the city, smashing buildings as it went and destroying the fleet that had been sent to stop Destiny. It crashed building through building as the bottom became the top, the building came around and began to sink down. Now that Destiny was running along the roof of the building, he got to the opposite corner where, using the force, he popped out one of the crystals and leapt on top of it. With one less support, the building shuddered and began to fall faster, a second crystal popping free of its own accord, trying to keep itself aloft as the building sank. As its supports popped out of place, the building lurched, issuing more screams from inside as the building began to crush its way through the city. It built up more and more buildings underneath it until it hit the power station that kept most of the city aloft. As the power station cut out, buildings dropped like stones all around Destiny. The stone on which he floated bled slowly from green to orange, descending slowly as the buildings around it toppled and fell and crashed into other buildings. The screams built up until the city reached the earth. Destiny's crystal landed softly on the earth, now completely orange. Destiny stepped off, standing on the remains of a university. Everything was dark. Everything was quiet. Destiny smiled. End of chapter 2.